Hi, my name is Rebecca. Welcome to Carnivore Wellness. Today I want to talk about my experience fasting this past January. So, back in January, I followed along a fasting protocol taught by some of the rock star coaches in this carnivore sphere, and I felt that I was ready to take on the challenge of following the fasting schedule. At that point, I had been a consistent carnivore for nearly 7 months, almost 8 months. I'd had other little previous starts and stop attempts to fast, but for various reasons along the way, I had been unable to fast. So once I finally reached January, feeling great and ready to go, I took on this fasting schedule. So I started off the schedule first doing 2 meals a day, then building up to 1 meal a day for a stretch of days before doing alternate day fasting, where you're still at under the 24-hour mark for length of time between meals, eventually building to 24-hour fast and then 36-hour fast and then rolling 36-hour fast, where you fast for 36 hours, eat for a certain period of time, and then go back into 36-hour fasting before eventually arriving at a 48-hour fast. At that point, I was feeling like a rock star, like, yes, I've conquered it, I can do this, I've got this. Yet, when it was time to do the rolling 48-hour fast, where you fast for 48 hours, then take your meals before beginning another series or another set of rolling 48 hours of fasting, followed by yet another round of 48-hour fasting, that is when I hit a brick wall and could not continue to go. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that experience of fasting. The benefits. Let's start with the benefits, because during this time period of about 3 weeks to a month of really giving it my all in seeing fasting benefits for me, I found several. The first is that I noticed I felt really calm with my kids, which is a godsend, because when you have two young children, sometimes it is really hard to keep your cool. But when I was in my longer fast, I noticed that I was cool as a cucumber. Nothing they did could disturb my calm, my sense of peace, and that was a huge gift, and I loved it. Another thing I noticed is that I felt more creative. My mind would take me to some very cool places. I had some great ideas. I was on fire for the world, for life, for everything that I could bring to the table. I felt wonderful. I also noticed improvement in my skin. Now, I do not claim to be a wrinkle-free individual, but I've had these wrinkles, coming in along the side of my mouth, because when I smile, I get those lines. But I noticed after doing, I believe it was the 24-hour fast, and then definitely after doing the 36-hour fast, the appearance of these wrinkles, when I'd get real up and close personal in the mirror, was much more diminished, to the point where my skin almost looked completely smooth. So the skin tightening, the skin benefits that are purported through fasting definitely held true for me, and I love to see that improvement. Another thing is that through this series of fasting challenges, I started to finally see a slimmer physique. My body was starting to let go of some of the excess fat that I had accumulated. If you haven't seen the previous video that I made detailing my weight gain experience, feel free to check that out. That will give you a little bit more of a understanding of what brought me to the point where I was gaining on the carnivore diet. And so as I was fasting, I was finally seeing the release of some of that excess fat, which to me felt great. The other thing that I noticed, which I didn't truly have an appreciation for until after, which I'll get into why, was an improvement in my digestive system. My intestines definitely underwent some repair. And it's interesting that I really do believe it was the fasting that was a huge catalyst for the digestive healing that I experienced, which became noticeable in the months to follow. I noticed that it was so greatly improved because I turned back to dairy. Now, why would I turn back to dairy in such a way that it would be significantly noticeable? Let's get right into that. I over fasted. I pushed my body way too far with the fasting. I missed several key signs that I was pushing my body too far. And I want to talk about what some of those are and why I think perhaps I wasn't as ready to fast as I previously thought. Let's just note that before I went into this fasting schedule, this month of fasting in January of 2023, the previous December, I had just gone through a bout of pretty intense illness that made it very difficult for me to stay on track. I really think that I was not as nourished as I could have been or perhaps should have been before starting this. But I had spent several months eating, to satiety and making sure that I was filling my body with nutritious carnivore foods. So I felt ready. I really did. And so I proceeded. Yet there were several signs. The first were kind of small at first, signs that, okay, fasting sometimes has its discomforts. For example, sometimes you can get a mild headache. Oftentimes, a quick fix for that is, perhaps it's an electrolyte imbalance, put a little salt under the tongue and the headache goes away, you can keep going. So I did occasionally use salt to help a headache go away so that I could continue to comfortably fast. That was one sign that was there that, you could take or leave as something that you might need to pay attention to and recognize as something your body is using to try to tell you you should pull back on the fasting. The second thing that I kind of overlooked or did not give as much credence to is the suggestive hunger. Now, when you're fasting, it is very normal for your body to expect food at certain meal times that it has been used to consuming food. So when that time rolls around, your body gets hungry. When you're fasting, you can wait this hunger out. It is suggestive hunger. It will go away. So that suggestive hunger for me would come and it would go. And it would come and it would go. But there reached a point in my fasting where it would come and it was there, loud and proud and making itself known. But I'm telling you, that suggestive hunger was much louder and more intense than it should have been if I were truly ready to meet that fasting challenge. That was the second thing that I kind of overlooked. It is normal when you're fasting for your hands and your feet to get a little cold. It's your body conserving energy. It sends that blood flow into more of your core, your organs, and your hands and feet get cold. No big deal. That's to be expected. The third thing was a core cold feeling. So I believe it was after the 36-hour fast. I was to the point where I was shivering cold and could not warm my body despite putting on layers and layers of down and insulated clothing. However, that core cold, shaking, freezing cold, that is not good. That is your body having a really hard time regulating due to the fasting and the stress that the fasting is putting on the body. So when I did during that day, I ended my fast after realizing I had core cold. However, I probably should have taken that time to then back up and go into a fully nourished pattern of eating for several days to make sure I was really giving my body the nutrients that it needed to continue. However, I stuck with the schedule because I was stubborn. I was ready to go. I had been waiting months and months to be able to do this fasting protocol, and I was just ready to be in it to win it and really wanted to see results, really wanted to see if my body was ready, and I ignored that important factor. The fourth sign that I saw that I was pushing my body too far was one evening my body started shaking and could not stop. It was a compulsive kind of shaking, convulsing really, and I couldn't get a rein on it. My legs were vibrating, my hands, my arms, my whole body was shaking. Yet, instead of eating, I went to bed. I, woke up the next day to continue on with this fasting schedule. I did not give that moment of my body firing up, my adrenal system crying out, begging me to, end this stressor and provide it with nutrition. I ignored that. That was a huge sign that I bypassed. And looking back, I now see that sign for what it was. But at the time, that wasn't something I knew to be aware of. And I kind of just thought it was a fluke thing. Like, oh, all of a sudden I'm nervous and shaking. That's weird. But that was indeed my adrenal response system reacting to this fasting stressor, and I overlooked it. I was about to start my rolling 48-hour fasts where I would 48 hours of fasting, then a fuel up day, and then 48 hours of fasting, a fuel up day, and 48 hours more. As I was at the start of that window of time, I was overcome with this irritability and almost what I would call anger, or just this general feeling of upset at fasting. Now, fasting never, it's not a person, it's not anything that was doing anything to me, but I felt that response of being mad at it, of being irritated, of wanting to push it away and not do it. Yet I was battling this internal personal struggle of wanting to commit, of wanting to see something through, of really wanting to continue on with this challenge. I had been a carnivore for 7 months and I just really wanted to keep going with this. But thankfully, I talked to a very supportive friend of mine, and she said, this is not serving you. So you really need to take a step back. You do not have to do this, and you don't have to do it right now. You owe it to yourself to listen to your body. And I'm so thankful for her wisdom and honestly, the sense of permission that she gave me in taking a step back from this fasting protocol that I had been following along with. So when I took a step back from the fast, I thought, I can just nourish my body, eat 3 meals a day for the next 3 days, and then I'll get right back into it. And that's really kind of what I expected. That's what I had seen many other folks who had followed along the same kind of fasting protocol experience in time. They hit a roadblock. They just need to go back into a nourished pattern of eating for several days, and then they can get right back into it, repeat the latest challenge and continue. But that was not the case for me. I experienced several challenges following this time that lasted for a significant length of time. So that's the next little bit I want to get into and share with you. So after my overfasting experience in January, which I can identify was fueled in part by me missing several signs from my body indicating that it was not right for me at the time, I experienced a huge drop in my overall level of health and sense of well-being. I had a return of hunger with a vengeance. My appetite was ravenous. I was eating huge meals 3 times a day, incorporating snacks. I was so hungry and I stayed hungry, and I was constantly thinking of the next meal. Along with that came a return of cravings. Now, since I had started carnivore back in June of 2022, cravings very quickly went out the window, and I did not have cravings up until the time that I battled that sickness in December of 2022, following that huge blow to my immune system. I did experience cravings then, but other than the initial time on, my transition into carnivore and that one time of following a sickness, I did not experience cravings. I had a great sense of food freedom. I only wanted to eat carnivore foods and I was good, take it or leave it, cookies, cupcakes, chocolate, whatever, didn't faze me. I didn't want any part of it. But that wasn't the case anymore. After overfasting, my cravings were there with me all the time. And that was very, very difficult to navigate. That, coupled with the hunger, really made it so that I could not see a way around eating and eating a lot. So that is what I did. The other thing that really was a huge blow to my sense of well-being was a return of anxiety and depression. Now, I personally think that for me, anxiety and depression has stemmed in large part from hormonal dysregulation. I believe that overfasting really dysregulated my hormones. It increased my cortisol so that all of the other sex hormones that, come further along in the hormonal building pathway were not able to be produced by my body in enough quantities to maintain a proper balance of hormonal regulation. So I was right back to feeling very anxious and depressed, and this was a huge challenge because for me, carnivore has been the answer for my anxiety and depression. So to be, at this point, 8.5 months into carnivore and to kind of feel like I was right back at baseline with where I'd been with my anxiety and depression was a huge blow to my confidence, to my sense of self. And, as as a mother to 2 young kids, I want to show up for them. I want to be my best self. And that felt very challenging when I wasn't feeling good, confident, stable, calm myself. So I really struggled, and I pulled back from a lot of aspects of my life because I was doing all I could to hold me together. So I couldn't do as much to help others or to be engaged in a broader, sense of community. And that was hard. That was really hard. And another, the anxiety, the depression, the hunger, the cravings, those were difficult. And then there were what I want to call vanity symptoms, which aren't really vanity so much as just exterior signs of our bodies not of the body not being in a place of nourishment and balance hormonally. And that is that my hair started to fall out. I naturally have pretty thin, pretty fine hair, which is fine. I've accepted it. But I do notice hair loss as it occurs, and the amount of hair loss I was seeing every day was increasing tenfold. And I really was, a little distressed because one of the benefits of carnivore is that your hair starts to grow in thicker, and, you don't see as much hair loss because your body's feeling so good and nourished. And I was having that hair loss. I also was having really embarrassing and painful cystic acne showing up on my neck, my chest, my back, and shoulders. And soon after starting carnivore, my skin cleared up. Like the last little bits of, little pimples and blemishes here and there really cleared up, and my skin looked great. So to all of a sudden have my body responding with big cystic hormonal acne pimples, they were painful, and they weren't the kind that just lasted a week or two. They lasted, a month or so, like sometimes 2 months to heal. And it really was, I didn't like the appearance, and I didn't feel good about my skin or myself, and, really struggled with that. And I also knew it was a sign of hormonal dysregulation. And given that this way of eating has blessed me with with helping me take back my hormonal balance, I felt like I was starting at ground zero. All of the health gains I'd had over the last several months leading up to this point kind of felt like they'd gone totally out the window, and that I was left with very little. So I had to do a lot to remember what all I had, how I'd benefited, and all the ways I'd benefited in eating a carnivore diet. And I had to just remain patient and stay the course. I knew that my healing from when I initially started carnivore to the point that I was feeling really good and kind of in the rhythm was about, 5.5 months. And I figured it would probably take about that long to get back to feeling good again. During this time, I experienced a disruption in my sleep. Now, as a mom of 2 young kids, that's really nothing new. Between the two of them, somebody was always getting up during the night during that time frame. But there were occasionally times where nobody woke me up to bother me. It was simply that my body woke up and that I was unable to go back to sleep, often for several hours at a time, just further indicating to me that my cortisol level was so high that my hormones weren't regulating. So it was a big challenge to feel good, between having insane hunger and cravings and anxiety and depression and skin and hair issues and sleeplessness, all of those combined. And then it's worth noting, I continued to gain weight. So there you go. That's 5 big things that I was struggling with during this time. The weight gain didn't do much for helping my confidence, didn't do much for helping my self-esteem or even my physical health. Of course, we all need to accept and love ourselves where we are with our bodies as they are. But, to me, that the continued excess fat accumulation was just a sign that I'd pushed my body too far, and this was my body trying to swing the other way in finding balance. So there was no option but to continue to be patient. And there have been several wise carnivore doctors who have mentioned that the body heals itself in a 3-month healing cycle. So I knew I needed to give it 3 months. So February, March, April, all the way through those 3 months, I knew I just had to stay in it and be patient. And by the end of April, my sleep was improving somewhat, and my appetite was decreasing. I could go back to having just regular sized meals, but I was still eating frequently, 3 meals a day, sometimes occasionally a snack. And I did, by the end of April, start to see an interest in intentional movement and exercise. I wanted to get out and hike. I wanted to go to the gym and lift some weights and do some resistance training. But it took a good 3 months to get back to that point, just where I was sort of getting back into a groove that felt good and right. And then I would say it took another 3 months, May, June, July, for me to reach a point where I now finally feel like I can ditch the dairy. So during this time of cravings, of, difficult mood challenges, the anxiety, just looking for comfort, I incorporated dairy because it was either dairy or quit being a carnivore, because it was so difficult to stay carnivore with this storm of challenges. So I leaned on dairy. I had access to raw milk. I was in California at the time, and so I was drinking raw milk, raw kefir. I had access to raw heavy whipping cream, which was divine, but not good for me overall. For some folks can moderate their dairy. I really struggle with that. So I've only recently ditched the dairy within the last week or so. And again, this kind of correlates with yet another 3-month healing window of time. And so I'm no longer using dairy. I'm no longer snacking. I'm back to just some regular meal times, scheduled meal times. But it's taken nearly 6 months to get back to this point. My message, my hope in sharing all of this, I have a few. One is listen to your body, check in with your body. If you are like me, you perhaps have spent a lifetime of trying to check out from your body, of not listening to what it's trying to tell you, of trying to disconnect. That is a personal challenge I face. So really try to listen to your body in whatever it is that you are doing, and take its feedback as your own innate wisdom. Number 2, a big takeaway is remain patient, remain consistent. It gets hard. You can do everything right, but it can still be hard, and it's okay that it's hard. All you can do is all you can do. And for me, all I could do was stay carnivore. So that meant eating more. That meant eating, not ideal carnivore animal-based foods. But I did it. I stayed committed. And I remembered my why. I knew I had to get back to a place of not feeling the anxiety, of feeling, confident and capable and strong and good and worthy of movement. And I got there. It's just taken a lot of time. And then the third thing I think that is a big takeaway is, this 3-month healing cycle. It's important. It's valid. Give it time. And stay curious. Stay curious. There are many times where I was wondering, should I incorporate some carbs? And that may be right for other people at their point in their journey, but for me, I wanted to stay carnivore. I've just remained so curious. What is on the other side of this? I know I'm in a place of struggle, but what is out there for me if I stay carnivore, if I stay with it, if I don't fall to temptation, if I don't go try to deviate to another eating plan, but just stick with this and rest in the knowledge that this is the way we were designed to eat, and just see it through. So remain consistent, stay curious, and see what carnivore can do for you. I certainly don't have the beautiful before and after pictures like many people in our community have so graciously shared to demonstrate that the amazing changes that can take place in the human body when it follows a proper human diet. I hope to one day have those pictures. I don't have them now, and that's okay. I'm still in the struggle. I'm coming out of it, and I feel much better than I did, but I'm still figuring things out for myself. And I just hope that sharing this story resonates with some of you and gives you hope that even if you're in a moment of struggle, it's okay. And the biggest factors are staying patient and consistent and curious. And if you can do that, that is the biggest gift you can give yourself in that moment. It's so easy to get wrapped up in what we expect things to be like or how soon we'll see results. And I've been so guilty of that myself in wanting to just get to the other side. But it's the journey. It's the self-discovery. It is the innate wisdom that we are building and cultivating as we move through this life with, this way of eating supporting us and being our best selves. So I really hope that this message resonates with some of you. If it does, please share with me how your own journey is similar or different. Have you tried fasting? Did it work for you? Have you, just been trying to follow your hunger cues, and is that working for you? Do you have to put barriers up for yourself the way that I do, no dairy, no snacks, in order to kind of bring things back? Are you able to just follow your intuition? We all are so different, and yet we are all united in this journey that we are all just trying to find the best way forward for each of us as we journey towards optimal health and healing. So this has been wonderful to sit here and chat with you. If you want more of this content, please like and subscribe so you don't miss anything new coming up as I will continue to share. You can follow me on Instagram at Carnivore Wellness, and then I have a blog website that I am continuing to build up at www.carnivorewellness.com. Again, my name's Rebecca. This is Carnivore Wellness. I'm so happy to be here to share a little bit of my story, my latest series of struggles, challenges, with this wider carnivore and animal-based community. All of you are on a wonderful journey. I'm so thankful you're here, and let's just continue to remain patient, consistent, and curious. We've got this. Have a wonderful day.